My name's Ethan Carter. I'm 35 years old, and I was married to Sophia for 6 years. She's 32, but you'd never guess it. She could easily pass for someone in her mid-20s. Beautiful, captivating, full of life. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. We never had kids. I was ready, she wasn't. Soon, Ethan, I promise, she'd say, flashing that sweet smile that used to make me weak. Our sex life? Incredible. But that wasn't even what I loved most. It was the way she made me feel. The way she'd kiss me. The way she'd pull me into a hug out of nowhere. The way she'd laugh at my dumb jokes like they were actually funny. Every time I held her, it felt like everything in the world was finally right. I thought she felt the same. Turns out, I was an idiot. Her betrayal took everything I felt for her and twisted it into something cold and vengeful. People say the opposite of love is indifference. That's not true. For me, it's this deep, unshakable rage that keeps me awake at night. If she were on fire, I wouldn't even lift a finger to put it out. I know what you're thinking. How did I get here? How does a devoted husband become the kind of man who plots his wife's downfall? It all started at the company Christmas party last year. Sophia always dressed to turn heads at these events. And honestly, a part of me liked it. Watching other guys stare at her, knowing she was mine, gave me a certain pride. But that night, something felt different. She wore this sleek black dress that clung to her body just right. Maybe a little too right. I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just dressing up for me. As we got ready, I told her, Sophia, these parties get out of hand. People drink too much, and lines get blurred. Just don't do anything that'll make me look stupid, all right? She laughed. Ethan, come on. I love you. You know that. Stop being so serious. Gel. I trust in her. That was my first mistake. When we arrived, the first person to greet us was her boss, Ryan Mitchell. The kind of guy who's always towing the line. Tall, cocky, full of himself. He's the VP, and he acts like he runs the entire world. His wife stopped coming to these parties years ago. Probably got sick of his behavior. Sophia, he said, completely ignoring me as he took her hand. You look absolutely stunning tonight. I wanted to knock that smug grin off his face, but Sophia just gave me that relax, Ethan look. Ryan hovered around her all night, always finding reasons to brush against her, lean in too close. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Sophia wasn't like that. She'd never do that to me. Would she? At some point in the night, I lost sight of her. I was caught up in conversation, trying to keep my mind off her and Ryan. But then her friend, Emily, walked up to me. Hey Ethan, have you seen Sophia? She was dancing with Ryan earlier, but I haven't seen her for a while. The way she said it, hesitant, like she knew something but didn't want to be the one to say it, made my stomach drop. I started looking for her. At first, I told myself I was just being paranoid. And then, I heard it. Muffled voices. A woman's breathy whisper. I followed the sound to a side room, and when I pushed the door open, there she was, bent over a desk, her black dress bunched around her hips. And there he was, Ryan. His smirk disappeared the second he saw me. For a second, I just stood there, frozen, like the air had been sucked from my lungs. Sophia spun around, panic all over her face. Oh my God, Ethan, let me explain. She scrambled to pull her dress down, desperation in her voice. I didn't flinch. My voice was cold, detached. There's nothing to explain. You're done. We're done. Ryan straightened up, trying to play it cool. Look, man, let's not overreact. I told him, Moss. Chin up. You think I don't know exactly what kind of guy you are? You've been circling her for years. Then I turned to Sophia. She couldn't even meet my eyes. And you let him. Ryan tried to act tough, stepping toward me like he thought he could intimidate me. Bad idea. Before he could say another word, I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. His cocky demeanor vanished in an instant. You have no idea how badly you just screwed up, I muttered. And I promise you, You're going to regret this. Not just tonight. Every damn day after. I could have punched him. I wanted to. But that would have been too easy. Instead, I slapped him. Over and over. Until his arrogance drained out of him completely. By the time I was done, he was crumpled on the floor, gasping. By then, my friends Jake and Lucas had arrived, probably tipped off by Emily. They stood in the doorway, watching in silence. "Get him out of here," I said flatly. As they dragged Ryan away, I turned back to Sophia. She was crying, mascara streaking down her face. For the first time since I met her, I felt absolutely nothing. "Get in your coat," I told her. "We're leaving." The car ride home was dead silent except for Sophia's occasional sniffles. My hands gripped the wheel, my gaze locked on the road. Finally, she whispered, "Ethan, please. Just let me explain. It was a mistake." I stayed silent. I wasn't thinking. I love you. That word. Loss. It was like a knife to the gut. Loss. My voice was eerily calm. "No, Sophia. You don't love me. You love the attention. The excitement. The thrill of sneaking around. But me? I was just your safety net. The guy you ran back to when you were done playing your little games." She sobbed harder. "That's not true. It didn't mean anything. I was stupid, selfish, but it didn't mean anything." I slammed the brakes, pulling the car to the side of the road. "It didn't mean anything?" I turned to face her, voice cold. "You didn't just betray me, Sophia. You destroyed everything we had. And you did it in public." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Ethan, please," she begged. "I'll do anything. Just give me a chance to fix this." "There's no fixing, miss," I said, my voice like ice. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." Instead of driving home, I took a different route. Sophia noticed immediately. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "You'll see," I muttered, not looking at her. 10 minutes later, I pulled up in front of a modest suburban house. The porch light was on, and a car sat in the driveway. She turned to me, confused. "Ethan, what is this? Who lives here?" I didn't answer. I just stepped out of the car, walked around to her side, and opened the door. "Get out," I said, my voice firm. She hesitated, her eyes flicking between me and the house. "Get out." Slowly, reluctantly, she stepped out of the car, pulling her coat tighter around herself. I grabbed her arm. Not Russ, just firm enough to make sure she understood she wasn't going anywhere, and led her up to the front door. I knocked. A few seconds later, the door swung open, and there she was, Ava Mitchell, Ryan's wife. Her face immediately shifted to confusion, concern written all over it. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Mitchell," I said, keeping my voice polite but firm. "I'm Ethan Carter. Used to work at your husband's company. Mind if we come in?" She looked at me, then at Sophia, her confusion deepening. Is everything okay? Is Ryan all right?" I gave her a thin, bitter smile. "Oh, Ryan's just fine. Had a pretty eventful evening, actually." Ava hesitated, then stepped aside, clearly wary but too curious to turn us away. She motioned for us to come in. Sophia looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole, but I tightened my grip on her arm and guided her inside. "Please, have a seat," Ava said cautiously, stealing nervous glances at Sophia. "No, thanks," I replied. "This won't take long. My wife has something she needs to tell you." Sophia's eyes went wide, panic flashing across her face. "Ethan, please don't. Tell her." I cut in sharply. Ava's expression hardened as she glanced between us, suspicion dawning. "What's going on?" I looked at Sophia, my gaze cold, unwavering. "Go ahead. Tell her what you were doing tonight. Or should I do it for you?" Sophia's lip quivered, her hands twisting together. I, she swallowed hard. "Ryan and I." "Say it," I snapped. Tears spilled down her face. "I was sleeping with your husband," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." Ava's face went deathly pale, then hardened into something sharp and unforgiving. Come on. Sophia hesitated. I wasn't about to let her dodge the truth. Tell her, Sophia. All of it. Her voice was barely audible. For years. Ava let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. For years, she repeated, almost to herself. 4 years of lies. She turned to me, anger and pain warring in her expression. And you just found out tonight? I nodded, walked in on them at the office party. Silence. Then, suddenly, Ava stepped forward and slapped Sophia so hard she nearly fell over. You filthy whore. Ava spat, her voice shaking with rage. You can have him. I don't want that cheating bastard anymore. I didn't stick around for the fallout. After we left Ava's house, I drove Sophia straight to her sister's place. She was a wreck the entire ride, sobbing, begging, pleading. You don't have to do this, Ethan, she cried. We can work through this. We can fix it. I kept my eyes on the road. My voice was quiet, steady. No, Sophia. You broke it. And some things can't be fixed. When we arrived, I didn't bother helping her with her things. I handed her the keys to the house instead. Don't come back until tomorrow afternoon, I told her flatly. By then, I'll be gone. Ethan, please. Goodbye, Sophia. I turned back to the car, but before I got in, I reached into my pocket and pulled out something. Gear. Almost forgot these. I tossed her panties, ones I'd picked up from the office floor earlier, right in her face. She collapsed, breaking down completely, but I didn't stay to watch. I drove off without looking back. By the time I got home, the sky was already turning light. Walking through that house, it didn't even feel like mine anymore. The pictures on the walls, the lingering scent of her perfume, it was all so familiar, but none of it felt real. Like I was standing in the ruins of a life that had ended hours ago. I packed fast. I didn't want to be in that place a second longer than necessary. Before I left, I grabbed one last thing. The framed photo from our wedding day. Not out of sentimentality. I just didn't want her to have it. The divorce started almost immediately. I kept my word. Offered her a simple deal. Split everything evenly. No drawn-out legal battle. But there was one condition. She didn't contest a divorce, and in return, I wouldn't drag her name through the mud with adultery charges. She agreed. What other choice did she have? She knew I had enough evidence to ruin her completely. And as for Ryan, well, I made good on my promise to him, too. I hit him where it hurt. I filed a lawsuit for alienation of affection. It's an old law, but still on the books in some states. Designed for situations exactly like this. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to humiliate him. And it worked. The lawsuit made headlines. VP of Mitchell Industries sued for adultery by former employee. The company's board wasn't thrilled about their name being dragged into a scandal. Not long after, Ryan was forced to resign. Something about needing to spend more time with his family. Not that he had won anymore. Ava divorced him, took the house, the kids, and a fat chunk of his savings. Last I heard, he was jobless, living in a dingy one-bedroom apartment, drowning in alimony and child support. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And Sophia? She tried to move on, but she learned fast that the grass isn't always greener. Word spread like wildfire, thanks to a few well-placed conversations I had with mutual friends. Her reputation was in tatters. Her family, once so supportive, wanted nothing to do with her. Her friends stopped answering her calls. The dream life she'd built? Gone just like that. She reached out to me a few times, desperate. I made a mistake, Ethan, she'd say. I'm so sorry. I'll never stop loving you. I never responded. Didn't need to. It's been a year now. The pain isn't completely gone, but it's faded into something I can live with. I'm in therapy, working through the anger and betrayal. But honestly, knowing they both got exactly what they deserved helps. People ask if I'll ever trust anyone again. The truth? I don't know. But I do know one thing. I'll never settle for less than I deserve again. Sophia destroyed the life we had together. But in doing so, she gave me something I didn't realize I needed: a second chance. And as for her, she gets to live with the consequences every single day. And that's a punishment I wouldn't trade for anything.